Hi everybody, welcome to Divine Design, Parenting for Greatness podcast. You're here with me, Charles, and Petrus. Thanks for joining us. I just said to Petrus, we're going to have a good old stare at each other this evening. So no special guests, but you'll have to make do with us today. So Welcome. From our side, today's topic, we're going to be discussing habits and everything around habits, but not the usual stuff, not the things that you've maybe learned, and we're not here to educate you or preach to you about what our habits are or your habits are. We really want to look at habits from a perspective of divine design, maybe around family dynamics and what impact habits have. So you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us, and we hope we can share in the conversation as well wherever you're joining us from. So Petrus, welcome.
Thanks, Charles.
Okay, so what's the usual talk that we hear about habits? What's the stuff that you've grown up with or come to know over the years? Broad themes.
Habits, first you form them, then they create you. Or first you create your habits, then they create you. We've got the usual books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, very smart, educated, actually recommended reads, but we don't really want to go down that route. Start with the end in mind. You become what you repeatedly do. That list of one-liners when it comes down to habits and routines are quite right up there. But that's the normal stuff that's on the street.
Yeah, definitely is. Nothing wrong with it, but as I said, we want to go a little bit deeper on it today and look at it from a family perspective, maybe perhaps a faith perspective as well. So if you enjoy that sort of thing and want to reflect with us, we both, I think we'd admit that, we I said earlier, we're middle-aged men. We've got habits, we know, and we can improve. But I think looking at the life journey from the different seasons in your life and how those can either create habits that you'd like to continue or create habits that you'd like to get rid of. How do we operate within the confines of our bodies, the errors that we have, the things that we've inherited, not just what we've learned, but also the behavior, but also the thoughts, and sometimes the unlearning as well with habits that needs to take place. So there are quite a few things we can go. I thought a nice place we could start, Coach, is looking at your perspective when you get a new player, student, learner, child under your wing. They want to join your tennis program. Over the years, they join in, and I'm guessing from a sports perspective as well, you as a coach are looking at certain habits right off the bat, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. I think, Charles, I just wanted to go one step back. What's the old saying? Don't do as I
do.
Do as I say mentality. I feel like I'm a little bit underqualified to talk about habits this evening, and I'm sure you are as well. A little bit outside my comfort zone. But when it comes down to, discovering what kids do, got a public voice, you got a private voice. So what we do is we have a kids play one of our players, just see what they do, their between point rituals, how do they handle themselves between points, changeovers, when they make mistakes, is there awareness, acceptance, commitment kind of mentality, we film them as well, the essential strokes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not the norm always, but we film the essential strokes, and then what we do is we give out a core video, and then we give out a slow motion analysis, because the human eye sees only a certain amount of frames per second related to a camera. And
except when it's your wife.
Oh, please, I don't want her to listen to this. But then after that, we also have them complete a profile sheet, because that way we know their goals. If you know someone's goals, and then it becomes about, okay, so I know what this kid's written down, what he or she wants to accomplish one day. Then it becomes a point, okay, let's have a closer look at certain, I don't want to use the word mistakes, inefficiencies they might have. I can explain it like this. I can scratch my right ear, my left ear, scratch my left ear, or swing my arms like a cowboy 3 times, and then still go scratch my left ear. Both times I got to scratch my left ear, One was just a shorter route. So then it's not about being right or wrong, but it's rather efficient versus inefficiency, and then, can it perform under pressure? Then you've got to go, okay, this kid's played a match. We charted it. We got some data. And then we can have a nice conversation with the parent, the player, us as coaches. Maybe you've got an assistant coach. And then we can sit down and say, listen, this kid has got certain holes in their boat. Yeah. And, if that boat's going to hit the water, it's going to sink,
How far do you want to go? Do you want to cross the Atlantic, or do you just want to sail in the harbor type thing? So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we basically do, on the tennis court. But
I'm so glad. Sorry, just to interrupt. I'm so glad my coaches weren't filming any of us when we were playing. See what they would find and report back on.
Yeah, it's just, it becomes down to a point where, how do you know where's B if you don't even know where's A? Creating film, using film, such a great starting point, and it reveals so many things, pictures worth 1,000 words. But
habit-wise, you get a new player in. What are you secretly, as a coach, hoping for when it comes to habits, when they are visiting you the first time? This can go so deep, but for me, on a personal level, is do they have a solid foundation? Do they have solid What do you mean by that?
The ABCs, doing the basics pretty well, so those are the habits, because everyone differs these days with coaching approaches and philosophies and the way they think it should be done. And then it's like, okay, this is a kid. The KISS method, don't underestimate the capacity of a young learner. But then the habits I'm looking for is, are they coachable? Are they adaptable? Are they hardworking? So that might be more of a characteristic, but it is also, boils down to a little bit of a habit,
Is the how, what they do and how they do it.
Yes, because change, learning's easy. Unlearning's the difficult part. So when you do get the new student and you go, ouch, this kid's been playing tennis for 10 years and thank you, Lord, now he's over my my doorstep, and now I've got to tell him we've got to make some changes if that's your goals. Yeah. And then I look sometimes like the bad guy because I'm trying to not just only save a kid's life, but save a tennis, not actually only save a tennis life, but save a kid's life. So, but Joel, I think, we could talk about sport all day. What's your view when it comes down to, or who's your coaches, or what are people looking for when they're actually on day-to-day living in life? Who are the people, for instance, that maybe you could share some thoughts where people coach you, and what are the things that, so putting myself on the spot, but if I was the coach, what are the people looking at you, Charles? What are the things in life?
Yeah, I think often that's why sport's always been such a great master in a way that it teaches you life lessons along the way. And so it's an easy way, it's intertwined, it replicates so much of life's rhythms, for example. So I think from my perspective, if we're looking at just everyday life and who is the coach that I need to go to either unlearn things or to learn new things, or where I get it. Again, the podcast is called Divine Design for a reason, and we've linked parenting to that specifically, and that is with parents. Now, I think that comes with negatives and positives. It comes with, you inherit from your parents what perhaps they've inherited from their parents, and so on and so forth. And that can be the good stuff, and that can be the not so good stuff. Yeah. But I think ultimately we have to recognize the role of parents. They are the primary caregivers. Unfortunately, years in education as well taught me that, and it was interesting having conversations with some parents sometimes who openly said, well, I don't really, it's not my job to do X, Y, and Z, it's your job as a school or as a teacher. Ooh. And you just thought, well, I think this is where we've gone slightly awry in our thinking as a perhaps in the Western society, where we smear that off onto the education system to go and do. which is all good and well, but what are you selling your child into and down what river?
Yeah.
And have you given them a paddle, and can they actually turn around or not? So primary education starts at home and parents. That's why it's fair to say, from our perspective, both of us, we always said we wanted to not help families, probably the wrong way to state it. We wanted to provide a sounding board, a platform to discuss family matters, dynamics, also hear parents and their stories, people who are in a position of, sometimes there are coaches who have impact on younger people's lives. But what's the driving force behind all these things? And so, what we inherit from our parents, they are the primary coaches in life, the life coaches, if you like. And scary thought. I was faced, was it earlier this year, with, without giving too much away, putting other people on the spot, with the thought that I'd recognized, I'd gained some new insights. I recognized some behavior in my own, when I say my family, not my married, my family, my children, my wife, but more for my family growing up. I recognized some behaviors that were always slightly, but sometimes I thought they were normal. Other times I thought, okay, maybe this isn't so normal. But it's only after I'd gained some insights from an extended family member about, okay, this is what this family member endured previously, that suddenly the puzzle pieces fell into place and it made a lot more sense to me, and I had a bit more empathy, sympathy, compassion with that individual. And then it also dawned on me that, okay, that needs a change in my behavior, or perhaps in my interactions with that person, because this is what they've gone through. And I think perhaps maybe generationally, you and I probably, as I said, be classified as middle-aged men right now. So our parents, their generation perhaps, or we don't necessarily know all the details going back into their lives and what they had to grow up with and what they had to endure, and then how that spilled over into the way that they've brought us up.
Yeah.
And so, again, we can learn, we can take the good and discard the not so good. We've talked about that previously in an episode about fatherhood, for example. So I think that's where divine design comes in, and where the enemy is always looking to rip families apart and to attack and break up what our Heavenly Father has designed divinely, in His wisdom, in His sovereignty, what the perfect model should look like. And the family is under attack today, and that's for good reason. Because if the family doesn't operate or work well, that cornerstone, even being, the old saying of being king of my castle, it starts at home. I'm the high priest of my house, and I have to take and own that. So I think parents, key, they are the coaches, and the beauty of that coaching relationship, if we've got a mother and a father in place, is that they do the coaching from different angles. One might be your technical analyst. The other one might be your psychologist in terms of your coaching, but from a life perspective. The mother's looking after the very important task of nurturing the children, and we rely on them for those formative years. But equally, fathers might be looking out towards the years beyond. One day when you leave home, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, and we focus perhaps on a lot of those things. So we've got different perspectives, but that's part of the design. We get the best of both worlds. We shouldn't be competing with each other. Other than that, take the voice, the compassion of perhaps grandparents. Again, there's another filter that's built into the coaching there. And then I think educators. Now, this can be literally your sports coach, your piano teacher, your teacher at school, whether it's your tutor, if you're homeschooling, for example. There needs to be people who have input into young people's lives. And I think where we see the problem quite often is, I know I'm going to have bad habits. I might have a false stroke in my life. That's just the way the same way who was it the other day? Was Hashim Amla, South African cricketer. He was talking about his weird back lift. And for the non-cricketers, it's just how he was batting, how he was playing his strokes playing cricket. But he said then, well, that goes back to a lack of space in the backyard, and so maybe that crafted the way that he picked his bat up and played his shots. And we're all a product of that in life. I might have a strange way of doing something because it felt normal, but that was just the way that the river meandered for me, and I got used to that, and that's how we did it. So I think from that perspective, it's getting back to family basics. I think also like coaching now in the age of mass information being available at your fingertips at any point in time, it becomes too easy to have the input of every Joe that's out there, every person out there with their 2 cents worth, when actually parents, let's be a bit more selective about who we allow into that inner circle of my child's trust, my child's influence, etc., who influences them. I need to be more selective because there's a responsibility on me to do that. And so not farming that out to the school or to some other influencer elsewhere, because what are their values and what is their purpose with your child's mind and body and etc. So I think the emphasis firmly on family. And you might ask the question, what if I didn't have a fantastic example? I had a lot of limitations in terms of what I had. And I think everybody's probably got a story there. There are very few people who had the perfect setup, but everybody had, over the years, I've come to look at it slightly differently. In my early relationship, my wife and I were fortunate enough, we got to know each other quite young. I was just finishing off school. She was still at school herself. So those initial years, you then think, well, okay, I'm entering into a relationship. You get married. What am I bringing to this party? And you then tend to think about, well, there's a bit of baggage perhaps, or there are things that maybe aren't perfect. I'm bringing that to the table, and there's that pressure on yourself. We have learned over time to actually look at it differently. And we talk about breaking the cycles and finishing off with certain things that perhaps don't need to be carried forward generationally, inheritance. I started looking at that differently in my perspective, that how could I empower my children the best way possible? If I had the perfect example, great, I could use that. But I often wonder, am I more effective? I know I'm not, but am I more effective? Let's say it's a rhetorical question. Yeah. Am I more effective because of the shortcomings that I've had, because of the struggles I had? Or, I mean, I say that, not compared to what some other people have gone through, it's minimal. Yeah. But the non-perfect way of growing up, I can then rely on that to address the way that I do things, to help the way that the next generation are what they inherit and what they get from me, because I was able to learn. If everything was perfect, I often wonder, well, would I have had much to pass on or be selective about it? Yeah. I would have just gone through the motions maybe. I don't know. So yeah, that's a long way around.
Our previous guest, or one of our previous guests, you are nothing. The perfect parents do exist, or they are out there. They just haven't been born.
Yeah, and not still children yet. Yeah.
You said a couple of things. One is your circle, your inner circle. Not everyone in your circle's in your corner as well. That's a very, very big point to bring out, because it's just like, okay, let's just make the circle bigger and bigger and bigger, and at the end, you got to watch out for the wolf also in sheep clothing. Yeah. And then also what it boils down to with habits, routines is, if there's going to be a void, what then? What's it going to be replaced with? Addiction? What's your view on that? If there's not that good example, what are the challenges? What are the things people, are facing? Because I like the way you said it earlier on, because I mean, we're all working through our challenges. No one's perfect. So that's, this is like, whoa, a very sensitive subject, because everyone's got their things. Tennis kids watching this tonight, if they're going to watch it, I usually tease with them. I say, no one's perfect. So if you make mistakes, smile, let go, and move on. Say, you can never be me. Go to the English dictionary. The only thing next to perfect, close your eyes, you're going to see me. But it's always a joke, but really a big joke. But what it boils down to is, if things, from your generation, what you said, I think it needs to be confirmed. We need to make sure that we give our kids a relationship, a love, so that they want to pursue good habits, and that it's almost gifted to them. Yeah. Because if there's not love, if there's not certain things early on, you look for stuff. I mean, it happens. That's how the nature almost forces you. I don't want to call the enemy the nature's way of doing things, but before you know it, you've got an addiction of some sorts.
You fall into bad habits more easily than you fall into good habits.
Exactly. And I just spoke to someone this week where never ever say I won't drink alcohol because my parents drink alcohol. Never say I'm going to do this because my parents. That's actually a very dangerous word, because the habits, the routines that you're actually alluding to, which could be called an addiction, is just going to find another addiction. So don't go like, oh, yes, my parents, they did drugs. I'm never doing drugs, but, oh no, I've got a new addiction. It's called, drinking. You've got to watch out for those kind of things, because people live in this mentality that it's oppervlakkig. I don't know what's the word
superficial.
For. Yeah, it's got to go a little bit deeper. And that's why we could talk about not drinking alcohol. We could talk about the dangers, but do we really understand that the hurt we faced when we were young kids, was it dealt with properly? Because I don't think people realize, just on my own experiences, I want to give the experiences, but I won't go that deep. But if those things aren't taken care of, just today at the tennis courts as well, we had a conversation with kids, We could be in jail. We don't even know we're in jail, because of bad habits that were created. Now all of a sudden I'm on my phone how many hours a day. And so, again, for a big thing that comes over is relationship. Really a relationship. And sometimes it's just rushed, it's cold, it's short, it's sweet. And I'm just asking, we're talking about divine design. Isn't that the design of the not so good one, to confuse us with keeping us busy?
The sad thing is, if you grow up in an environment that is less than ideal, thinking back to some of the stories shared, for example, we had Natalie on the show, and that's your norm. That's your everyday. And so if you don't move beyond that reference in your world, it's very small, that bubble that you live in, and you never move beyond that, how do you know what is normal? So again, even in habits, we could say, well, is a habit good? Well, by whose standard? and whose perspective?
Ouch.
Is it a good habit or is it a bad habit? And I think there is where, regardless of the situation, whether it is perfect, because some children grow up in perfect scenarios, or we'll look at it from the outside and think, oh, perfect setup there.
Perfect family.
And then you scratch a bit deeper and perhaps things can start coming out. So let's just squash the illusion that everybody grows up in a perfect environment in that sense. I think since the fall, from the garden, that corruption has crept in, and it finds its way into our lives in some way or another. And again, we're probably bringing up some of our previous conversations here about the one James did with us about restoration.
Yeah,
it's a constant search for restoration to get back to that perfect state.
Pick up your cross every day.
And so you were asking, well, how do you cope with that if you don't have a good model or a good example, role models? And that is, I think, I've asked the question, I know that challenges are going to come my way, my children's way. How do we deal with those is really based on what is our anchor. If you use the analogy of a boat out at sea being smacked about by the waves in a storm, and you're either going to get swept away, or what do you use as your anchor? And so is that anchor something that is worthwhile? Do you have a nice rubber ducky plastic anchor, or have you got a heavy metal anchor that is going to really drop down and keep you where you need to be? Yeah. Can you depend on it? Does it give you certain sense of
stability?
Are you sure? You've got confidence in that anchor.
Yeah.
And that's where that anchor has been there for so long, since the beginning of time, has been there for us. And what the Almighty has created, and He wants relationship. That's what He wants with us, from us. Let us create them in our image. But over time, I believe the work of the enemy, but the slow erosion of taking that dependable anchor out of our society, taking it out of our habits and routines, deleting it, replacing it with other things that are more sparkly and shiny and entertainment
And bling bling.
and all this sort of stuff. Slowly that erosion takes place, and you don't necessarily realize it, but once you start looking up and you realize, oh, all the soil's gone and the tree's roots are exposed, and then the strong wind comes up and the tree gets knocked over. You didn't really realize it to begin with, and so I think it's what is your anchor.
Yeah.
I want to probably not change direction here, but maybe if we think about the viewers out there, those with families. There's a lot going on from a family perspective. The dynamic between husband and wife, the dynamic between children and parents, the dynamic of being a father, being a mother, and then just the interdynamics between all of those, etc. The changing of seasons in one's life, going from perhaps your own childhood, transitioning then to the next season where, okay, I've got to stand on my own 2 feet a little bit here. Maybe your years post school. Some people choose to go and study, but you're a young adult and you've got to start cutting the cord and moving out and doing your own thing. Then finding your feet in the world and knowing who you are, and then not relying on mom and dad, the bank of mom and dad, or otherwise as much. And then perhaps going into a relationship, you progress to. This sounds cliche, but I think we need to remind people of it nowadays because there's so much talk against this sort of thing and a traditional way of doing things. But the beauty of fulfilling divine design, finding that person or praying about it and getting to that relationship and making that commitment and stepping into the beauty of a marriage. And I know everybody's experience of marriage has not necessarily been that. But
unfortunately,
by divine design and what it's meant to be, it's supposed to be something that's beautiful. Having children, the blessing that they are in our lives, and go and read your scripture. It tells us in so many different ways and so many different occasions about what children are supposed to be for us in that sense. And then getting to the point where the cycle then continues. You have children, and then you become the grandparent. And then, kids have moved out, and then, that whole cycle then continues. So you go through these different seasons. What do you think what's the impact on habits on you as a person as you go through those different seasons? What do we need to consider?
Yes, Charles, you bold me. Okay. One, you've got to be open for that as well. For a long time in my life, I think because I've got to separate myself from certain things because I always didn't have good examples. So you didn't know where's the next season. You didn't know how to handle certain stages of things. So one thing I had to do is almost be like a verkeermannetje, chameleon. You almost got to fake it till you somehow look like you make it, and try and figure out how to do things. And
just don't get caught.
Yeah. But then you actually, I didn't for a long time in my life, maybe read the Bible the way I should. But I'll tell you now, later in my life, I wish I knew it a little bit earlier. Is to actually guide the family on that principle. We were lost at sea, but since the Bible, it's just going so much better. Directions on course. Not that it was ever not going in a good direction, but yeah, hopefully that answers it from my side. Because it's a tough question to answer because I didn't have that. But what we should do is we should be adaptable. It's what you learn and do after you know it all. Because even if you don't know it all, what are you adapting to? Is there good little consistent growth taking place on all facets of your life? Going from a teenage boy to a young adult to marrying and then becoming a father and having a responsibility of other kids as well. Yeah. So hopefully that answers it. What's your view?
No, you knocked it on the head there. The whole idea about adaptability, but also I think you can only look back at it after you've gone through a few seasons. You can look back and think, okay, And I think this
I
is...
wish I, sorry, I wish I, one part of it's like, if I could only eliminate myself from that situations or those situations and look from it from the outside in. But sometimes when you're in the situation, you just feel, yes, I'm just actually
surviving.
Yes, I might even be messing up, Am I doing okay? And then you realize, okay, we've survived now for 20 years of marriage. I must be doing some things as well, Something's good.
Here's a question then. I think really from our perspective as men, I think it's a more natural thing for our better halves to get involved with, maybe not so much for us. I've often reflected on it. I think it's just dawned on me again that perhaps I didn't have enough trusted older men in my life who could, let's say, act as mentors, but for advice or for guidance on certain things. I probably would, if you asked me when I was younger, my 20s, would have said, no, I'm okay, don't worry. But I think looking back now, that influence, and whether that's a father-in-law, whether that's somebody who you've grown up with, who's in the family, a trusted person, whether it's a granddad or an uncle, or even just maybe it's your best friend's dad or something to that. Having more of that influence around me, I know it can go various ways, but having the discernment to know this person is of a certain character or a certain caliber as an individual, I can take something from them. I might not want to take their taste in who they support on the rugby field, perhaps, but there are options in terms of, that person is really a shining light in that area of life. Yeah. That person is a shining light in that area. So to have that around you, and that's probably something that's been laying on my heart a little bit more heavily is, and you never think of it from your perspective. I think you and I, because of coaching, education, being involved with younger people, it's perhaps something that lies close to us, and we naturally do. Yeah. That's not the case for everybody. But now I start thinking when I'm older, well, my primary job, again, coming back to the first question earlier on, was who are the life coaches? Yeah, it starts with the parents. I'm the parent. I've got to inject and do my bit. It's my responsibility. It's my duty. Can't shirk those responsibilities with my own children. But other, perhaps young men that are still seeking their way, guys that are early in making their own way. So the challenge I'm giving myself here, you, the viewers out there, especially the men, is let's reflect. Maybe we should reflect more often on who's out there. Some young guy who's maybe in his early 20s who could do with a bit of that level of support. And by that, I don't mean telling him what to do all the time, but just being a willing ear, offer some life advice, etc. We could probably save ourselves a lot of headaches in our relationships if we can take from what they've done and where they see. But it's having the discernment of who you pick. Again, who's that person's anchor? How do they view life? Yeah, are they like mentor? Are they away with the wind? They just sort of flutter about, or is there somebody who's solid who can give you that? I think there's probably a bit of a quiet call, a quiet cry for help for a lot of young men out there on that level, because we've become, as you said, slightly. Oh, sorry, I switched that off there. No. We've become fragmented. We've sort of become, we're connected, but we're not connected, as we know by now, because I'm living my best life on social media, but actually there's no connection, where we need to come back again. So I think the different seasons in our lives, that's probably the one where I think there's a gap there where we could influence more. The young school years, there's always going to be somebody there who will play that part.
Because don't you think also pity finds some sort of a party? Some of the things that happen to me or the voids I have, you've got, maybe just in a different way. We find each other. Now we all of a sudden, we connected. Just because based off bad habits, bad stuff that happened in the past, now causes us to have bad routines together. Now all of a sudden, we're the mentors for one another. That's actually a very dangerous place, because one's going to drag, I'm not going to drag you up, I'm going to drag you on even lower to failure, Well,
that's if we rely on our own strength and our own insights, we're doomed to fail, full stop. And that's the history of mankind. We need to have something higher than ourselves. And it comes back to our role within our families, within our homes, being the high priests in our house, in our families. We as men in our homes have a covering above us. We have a covering, and that is the Almighty. He is there. We answer to Him, and that's our accountability. And if that is there, I think there's a higher chance, percentage-wise, that you're going to be honest with yourself, honest with others. If you are the highest thing in your house, the highest, and there's no covering above you as a husband, as a man, as a father, then that's dangerous ground, because who do you answer to? Who are you accountable to? I know our wives are sent to be our helpers. And we joked earlier on, I said, well, yeah, they're there to help us, and they do help us. We don't necessarily always agree or see what they see. But thankfully, they've got that wisdom, and they support us, and they really give us an angle that we might not have considered. We're not perceptive to it, because, we're sitting in our nothing box and, come up for air every now and then. But that's so crucial. Again, goes back to divine design. What does the Father put in place to get to a point where we can do the best that we can do? It's stick to His model, stick to His design that He's given us, which is crucial. Seasons in our lives, adaptability is a key thing.
I also think, Charles, when it comes down to how the brain works, habits and routines, brain pathways. You created so much bad myelin with a bad habit. I want to go one step deeper. I accepted the Lord as my Savior, but it feels like I've still got these bad habits. It's only the blood that can really, wash you clean. But you've got to understand that you, as the person, you're the Vav, you're the just a human. You've got to make some decisions. It's like, I want to go again with you on. Okay, here's the shovel. Okay, dear Lord, you can. Where's the hole? You need to dig. You need to get to work, because then that's where the action comes. Okay, I'm going to have a new way. I'm going to start thinking positive. I'm going to go into. I was usually negative. Now I'm just going to try and see the positive in everything. You've got to create new myelin. You've got to create new pathways. That and it's got to be repeated daily. It's not just a thing of like, okay, I found the Bible, I found the Word. It's going to be a lamp for my feet, light onto my path, kind of mentality. And now I'm just saved, and it's all smooth sailing. It doesn't really work like that.
It's a bit more messy than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a daily walk.
It is. How did you get to that point? Could ask you if you feel like comfortable answering that. Yeah. But how does one get to that point where, I realize this? Because there needs to be a sense of self-awareness there, or awareness of, I can't continue in this fashion, or actually something comes across your journey or your path that stops you dead in your tracks. How do you get to that point? Because you could be blissfully ignorant of actually what the real picture is if you zoomed out and had a look at your life, because everything's fine. For you, thinking about habits, is it something you thought about? Is it something that was bothering you and you were searching? How did that pan out?
I think, I'm going to answer this in two ways. I had a conversation with my own kids the other evening. I told them, don't wait for trauma before you make good decisions daily. If you're going to wait for trauma, then it's almost forced upon you. You've got to make a mindful decision on, okay, I want to change. I want to improve. I want to get better. I want to not out of my own control. It's almost, life gets tough for us as men as well. We don't have to feel bad saying that and sharing these thoughts. But what helped out is, I desperately wanted to make sure that I just provide for the family to the best of my ability. But then I've also got to realize that there's, like you said earlier on, there's a covering over me. And if it's all about me, we've met the enemy, and the enemy kind of is us sometimes, because it's the poor me syndrome. And that should not actually be the case. So, hopefully that answers it as well. But what did it for you?
I think there was always a level of relationship there regarding the spiritual man within me, and not wanting to give in to the carnal side, which can just happen so easily.
Oof.
But it's not been plain sailing.
Blink of an eye.
And I think a few years back, the realization that the standard that was set before me, in the words of the Messiah, when he said, "You're going to come to me and you're going to say you've done all these things in my name."
Oh.
And then I thought, I got my checklist out and I thought, well, I'm not doing that, cross, not doing that. Oh, no, I'm not even doing that. And he told those people to go away. He doesn't know them.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Workers of iniquity, workers of lawlessness.
Yeah.
And I had to reevaluate, because I just thought, hang on, where am I on this pecking order here? We've got a problem.
Not worthy.
Because it got to a point of, I think this is the fear factor. And if some of the listeners might be familiar with this, if you listen to some other famous YouTube channels, not that we rub shoulders with them at all, but the whole idea about I'm going to put you in a plane, 10,000 feet up and say you're going to save yourself, but you have to flap your arms to jump out, save yourself. Mm-hmm. Or if I gave you a parachute at the beginning of the journey and said, hold on to this, you might need it. You are going to hold on to that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I realized that I need to take this a bit more seriously. Mm. And that got me on a path of, well, what is truth? And we can watch this afterwards and see if this needs to be edited or not. I don't know. I'm going to go. I feel led to.
No way, Gabby.
We got to the point where I thought, well, what is truth? The question that Pilate asked Jesus, he asked Yeshua, what is truth? And in that question, I was asking myself as well, we've got, feels like thousands of denominations just within the Christian world.
Yeah.
But what separates their truth from one another? Not much sometimes. Only the way that they interpret scripture or how they want to look at certain things. And I just thought, hang on, something's lost here. And getting to that point where I valued truth because I knew what was on the line here for myself. One day when I have to stand in being judged, which no one will escape. And then obviously when you get a family, we talked about adaptability, I realized, well, hey papi, jy moet nou reg staan hier vir jou familie. And that just sort of, I thought, well, I need to start sifting through the trash and to go and find the gold. And that was then a case of, well, you know what, maybe I don't know the Father as well as I think I do. And that was a case of prayer. That was a case of reveal to me the things that you hate, let me hate those, and reveal to me the things that you love, let me love those. And from
powerful. There,
maybe a different episode, different point, testimony, things started to move in certain directions. Some of those things were, I realized, and the light bulb went off. But then it didn't just stop there, end there. It led me to a point where you have to make a decision about what you're going to do with this truth now. What are you going to do with it? Not just sit back and, acknowledge it mentally. What are you going to do with it?
Yes, yeah.
And that drove me on to, well, let's reevaluate this path that we think we know and where it leads to. And we went down a different route. I'll draw the line there. So that's been a key thing. Well, what is my anchor? And when I say truth is my anchor, not this concept, modern day concept of your truth, my truth. 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, it's nothing else. And so there is the truth, and there's only one who says that he is the truth
and the way
and the life. There we go. And so it was a case of, do I know him? And I think there's more to it. And then, the beauty of what's been revealed in time and what I've been able to pass on to the family and the children, and just renew the purpose, renew the space in which we operate. For myself as a father, as a man, does it look perfect every day? No, it is messy at times, but I think that's the way it's supposed to be. If I don't mess up every now and then, my children are not going to have a great example, the best example. They need to see me mess up, because that gives me an opportunity to apologize.
And that you're also vulnerable.
That's it. And if they see Dad apologizing, that also gives them the opportunity to.
Because that doesn't happen.
Well, not nearly enough. I can still be the figure of authority in my own home. I could still be the head of the house, but if I don't mess up, I'm never going to have the opportunity to actually apologize to my children, and they don't know what that looks like coming from me and restoration, etc. So I bring on the messy. We know the challenges are going to come as well, where it gets really not just messy but ugly. But those are either tests or that we get from one direction, or they could be attacks from other directions. If I know where my anchor is, I know who my anchor is, then you could probably, I have the confidence knowing you could throw at me what you want to. So I've gone about a roundabout way, whether that gets to the original question.
No, that's good. Yeah. Maybe I've heard this the other day. If we talk about, a sin and a bad habit, if I'm allowed to go to that route, Father, please forgive me my sins, but don't take my habit away. It's a very fine line,
Perspective.
Yes,
Truth. Who gets to determine what it is?
And then another question on that is, or a statement more. I don't want to use a statement. That's the wrong word. The dear Lord appears now in his infinite ways, which you will, anyways, won't happen. I don't want him to go there. It's not going to happen. But yes, hey, Charles, I'm struggling with this bad habit, And the dear Lord appears. Are you going to let your habit go? You're going to let your habit go real quickly, because now it's real. Faith is sometimes things you can't see, feel, touch, experience, that kind of thing. You've got to have that faith. That's, the mustard seed, the mentality, and, you've got to think like a child,
Well, show me your faith without works, as James said, and you'll show me a faith that is dead.
Yeah.
So in that, what I mean by that is you can receive and have that faith, but if it's just a mental ascension to I believe, but what does that look like on the ground? When boots on the ground, what does that look like day by day? How do I live it? How are people able to see that? And so it's not works for salvation, but those works are a result of my salvation. My want to heart get to a point where I want to be obedient. I want to do what is right in his eyes. I want to aspire to be righteous, so that I can have that title of good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
But it needs to pass over from just a mental to actually doing.
Yeah, because hopefully I came across right. People pray prayers like, that the sin part I did is rather, dear Lord, save me the punishment, but don't take my sin away. Don't take my default away, because that's my security kind of comfort. And I actually just want to encourage the listeners, go to the Word. Don't try and find your answers with what the world always just says. Here's a quick exit.
Has to offer.
Yeah, has to offer. It looks so flashy. It looks so. Just realized recently that the world's really dark, in a dark place, and people really need some truth, and the truth will set them free as well, because you'll actually break a lot of chains.
Would it be fair to say that even if we're doing a podcast, we don't shy away from too many things, but we probably don't go full tilt into as many things as we want to, because there's always a little bit of a self-censoring, we've just got to be careful, we don't want to step on toes, etc. As much as we would like to reach as many people as possible through these episodes, it equally, we've said, if it reaches one person and makes a difference, that's all that counts. And if it can lead somebody to a different understanding, or looking at their life differently, understanding their purpose, especially in the context of family, then we've struck gold, because that's the difference it should make. But we need to hear the truth. The truth can cut, but ultimately it can also remove the chains of bondage. When the truth actually is exposed, it's not nice sometimes to hear it, but actually somebody has to be bold enough to proclaim it and to say it. And again, life coaches around us. Again, I say this with so much love, and I'd like to honor my wife in that sense, because she will point those things out, and the carnal me doesn't always necessarily like it. I'm being attacked or criticized, etc. But if I just let it sink in and reflect on it sincerely, in the spirit, and I think actually, yes, she's just, well, I wouldn't say she's polishing yet. She's probably got the sandpaper and rubbing quite hard. But then the polish comes afterwards, when the Holy Spirit says to me, yes, Mr. Lamprecht, there we go. And then you understand what just happened or where I'm moving towards. So those truth tellers in your life, don't push them away too easily. Allow them to, give them some space, be open enough. Because one day, whether you like it or you don't like it, one day you're going to be in the ultimate position where the truth is going to be told and revealed, and there's no hiding from that. And again, that comes down to your belief. Whether you believe it or not, it's going to happen nonetheless. It's going to be there. So.
This I don't want it to go all certain directions, but things come to my mind: pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
Unpack that for us.
Yeah. I can just maybe go one step further. I'll come back to that. But when do people change? When it's finally important to them, or when it's too late? And I just wonder, with this episode, if you're sitting tonight and you're watching this, or today, wherever you are, it's never too late to actually let go of some bad habits. But, simple kid mentality. You go to a doctor, you're smoking. He asks you, do you smoke? Yes. He tells you, well, if you don't stop smoking, you're going to face some challenges. Yeah, doctor, I'm still going. You go back another 6 months, it's like, yes, so, it's gone that far, and it's harsh. Okay, doctor, I'll really change. Now it's important for me. What damage has it done? But it's never too late. But the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, did you listen the first time? If you didn't, listen the second time. And if you're the person knocking on someone's door and they don't open the first time, that knocking doesn't mean you're physically breaking down their door. That could be just a prayer in your private setup. Keep knocking on that door. I'm thinking of earlier on when you said who were the people who took accountability for Charles Lambrecht or Petrus Koekmoer. It's like, was it an aunt? Was it a grandma praying somewhere? It's not always about, okay, let's grab a Bible and hit some people with it over their heads. That's not the case. But this has been incredible so far.
You just mentioned something that came up, and we often shy away from it in this modern society. Got to be careful, otherwise YouTube might not like what I'm about to say. But
that would be a privilege to say that with you.
Upset them.
No,
just rephrase what you said. The pain of discipline,
or the pain of regret.
Okay, isn't that parenthood in terms of disciplining your children? Now that means something different to different people. When I say that, but what the thing that came up in my mind as you said that was just letting your children get away with and just carte blanche. You do what you want to do, and you keep warning, and there's no consequence.
Yeah,
that is the pain of regret later.
Yeah,
because then ultimately the fruit is rotten.
Oh.
Vroeg rijp, vroeg vrot.
Yeah.
The fruit is rotten, and then you can't reverse that process once the fruit is rotten. It's only good for putting in the bin or feeding to the animals.
Yeah.
And so this whole concept of, I think for us as parents, it's too easy nowadays, people just to hand it over to somebody else to do. We need to stand in the gap for our children and practice good discipline at home. Discipline means different things. I said, we'll go back to scripture. Bend the tree whilst it's young, so that it is firm and upright, and it will not forget the way that it should go.
Yeah.
Equally, if you stand in the gap and you practice good discipline at home, that boils itself down to how's your child, especially your teenage daughter or son, perhaps, if they're in that bracket, how are they speaking to your spouse?
Yeah.
Dads, are you allowing your children to speak to your wife in that way? And just, it's okay, because what are they going to do one day when they're older? Moms, are you perhaps too many warnings. There needs to be a line somewhere, because you need to teach your child that there is a consequence to it, just as there will be for them in real life, and when this life is done as well. Whatever we do, it's replicating a divine design and something that's for the future. So we need to step in. Dads, it starts with us, really, in many ways. I know sometimes we can be a little bit hard, perhaps, and it's the good measure, the mix between what we offer as dads and moms. But we need to step into that role that we've been given by divine design, to actually ensure that the fruit does not become rotten. We need to give the best pruning of a tree. Sometimes it needs, otherwise it's leaning too heavily to the one side, or to produce better growth. I need to prune that tree or that shrub. It will come back better. Sometimes there's a place and a time for that, and we can't ignore that. So, on the topic of bad fruit, healthy fruit, or good fruit.
Yeah.
You might have habits, and I might look at them and think, wow, those are okay habits, great habits.
Thanks, Charles.
Or bad habits. I don't know. And then you might look at mine, and it depends on our perspective. From whose perspective, who's looking at this. I might do something that I think, oh, I'm harsh on myself. Somebody else might look at it and think, why are you giving yourself such a hard time, perhaps? Bad fruit, good fruit. Great analogy for us to use in terms of the family setup. What do we deliver? I know when I'm driving around in my car in town, the fruit isn't always so good. If you live in George, and the people in the cities, I know I won't say differently, but the fruit is not always that good when I'm in my car and I'm driving. I have to admit, so I apologize and do the confession right here. If we're looking at a bad habit and a good habit, we were discussing this off air.
Yeah,
perhaps working this backwards for people and saying, because we'll point out stuff. Something, you've got that friend or that family member who likes to point out the habits that you've got, which might get start bothering you after a while. But let's look at what we ideally want in the home, or in whether it's the family setup or the relationships that I want between myself and my spouse, my husband, wife, or between me and my son, me and my daughter, or between the kids. What is the ideal that I want? And then working backwards, saying, well, what habits would... So if in your case, Petrus, it doesn't have to be you, anybody. What's the end goal in that you would want to see the perfect... What does it sound like, look like, and feel like the perfect family dynamic? Give us a feel that you would how you describe it. It doesn't have to be your family, but what's the perfect...
Well, I think where there's scripture... where the house is open for the word, there's a living relationship, and where no one's better than anyone, where the son can help the dad can help the son, and obviously there's, levels of authority and things like that. But, I can't go any other way when it comes down to a family dynamic, is who's the center. Who's the center? What fruit is that producing?
And if it produced great fruit, what would it look like? If you were a fly on the wall, what would you be seeing or hearing?
I think if I'm honest with myself, love, peace, joy, kindness, goodness. But that does, I'm thinking about those things and I've written them down. We all know those
fruits of the Spirit.
Fruits of the Spirit, but that doesn't mean that's the guarantee. Because even that good family with good habits, they're not guaranteed tomorrow to have that same. It's called walk of life, It's called day-to-day living. So, but that's definitely, I think, the fruits that you could enjoy. You can experience. There's love with the parents, the joy, the peace. I mean, the word shalom, it's just an incredible word. The depth is just actually amazing. Patience, the kindness, the goodness, it's actually amazing, when you go down that list.
I'm just checking your spelling.
Hey, don't do that. This is Afrikaans, But on the flip side, or am I missing something?
No. I think that's what it looks like. So if we portray that as having all, let's say, the fruits of the Spirit being present in our homes as families, I was also thinking of things like unity, for example, as well.
Absolutely.
So
trust.
If we could, this is open-ended really for all of us listening and part of this conversation. most people I hope tuning in will say, yep, I'd like that for my family as well. Then let's work backwards. What are the daily habits that we should be putting in place or could put in place that would lead to that, for example? And again, we can go and ask more experienced individuals, people who have a really solid family dynamic or a fantastic marriage. You might find different elements from different people. I want to go to those people in terms of the marriage side of it. I want to go to that family in terms of the father-son relationship.
Yeah.
So I think picking if you're lucky enough to have those sort of relationships around you, but then what sort of habits? And this got me thinking about, obviously, what's also true is about the bad habits. If we go into families where the setup is dysfunctional, and we always, we often tease each other, say we're a normal family as far as anybody knows. Don't let on otherwise.
Just my two can't keep their mouths shut.
There we go. But there's different levels of dysfunction. But in the ones where it's really going bad by general standards, what then looking at the habits that take place? And I think maybe this is a question we can all, including if you're listening in today, the question you could ask yourself in your situation, whether it's you're a young person looking at your family, looking up to your parents or your family dynamic, if you are somebody with young children who are still starting out their journey, or whether you are retired and your children are adults and they've got their own families now, but you're still part of that extended family. We can ask ourselves the questions, assess where it's at, and then think about the habits that are actually helping to contribute to that. And I think if you break it down to, here's the big picture of what I see, what I want, the ideal, or what's dysfunctional, but then the habits are really the bricks of that house. And the habits are the daily things that are creeping in. And I think when you break it down to that level, it then becomes a bit more attainable to say, oh, I think I should want to take that brick out of the wall and replace it with something else. Or here, I want to take that brick out and replace that. Or that brick is cracked, it's not working. Then it doesn't become overwhelming as to what you might be in a very difficult situation in family life. I think the comforting thing to know is you might not be able to change it overnight. You might not be able to jump in and seal it all, make it all perfect. Quite often what we want to do, how can I fix it?
Yeah.
Instead, what are the habits? And maybe that boils down to something that you do daily, a new change that just needs to happen, a small little habit, a micro habit, really, because the micro habit will add up to what's happened in a week, what's happened in a month, what's happened in a year, what's happened in a decade, what's happened in a lifetime. If you look back at that, then actually we don't have room to hide to say, I couldn't influence my situation for the better, even in a small way. It could be a very small action. Kids, I don't know how many kids we have tuning in, but I'm going to make breakfast for mom and dad. It's something small like that, for example. Or
you could ignite certain things.
Yeah, I'm going to do my chores without having to be asked, or whatever it might be. From the parent's perspective, set the challenge. Perhaps I'm thinking of myself. Patience and having more patience, not getting so easily frustrated with certain things.
Yeah.
Just zooming out. Just zoom out. In the world of not your coaching, life coaching, and etc., there's some ideas regarding having physical anchors in place that you can get your mind to connect to that physical anchor in terms of how you feel time, how you operate. I've worked with people where we build up the perfect situation. Think of a happy place that you've been. Now, when I say happy place, not a venue, but your happy place. It's somewhere, a holiday you might have been on, or a particular place, a landscape, a song. Sometimes it's in a song. That's your happy place. We go there mentally, and then you brighten what that person is seeing in their mind. Make the colors really vivid. Make the sounds extra clear. See everything in Ultra HD. I mean, probably more levels. It's the easiest way to explain it. Take them to that happy place mentally, and then let them stay there and experience that. And then from a visual, audio, and a kinesthetic and movement, and then what you feel. And then we often would say, right, imagine your body then in that moment as a battery, and you're charging, and it's charging up from your toes all the way to your head, and it's exploding. You take that, and then you capture that, but then you fix it to a physical anchor. I've got one. I twist my ring. Okay, so when I twist my ring there, and this is something I had to do multiple times, muscle memory, to associate this physical movement with the feeling of something. So when I do this, immediately I'm taken to a particular house that we lived in. I can see the house now. I'm in the living room. I'm on the couch. My daughter is, at that point, she was about 2 years old, and she's lying on my chest, just having a nap. Wow. And I'm rubbing her back and giving each other a bit of like a hug. And it's a happy place. It's a happy moment. And I've attached that over time, that feeling and so when I do this now, I don't always think about it when I do this, but over time and over the years, when I do, I know it releases it is really mental. It releases that, the good vibes, if you like, for me. So you can actually attach that. And I think, how can we build that in? Open-ended rhetorical question here. How can we build that into our daily routines with our families, with what I do for my spouse, what I do for my children, vice versa? There are little things that I can do, because I think we look back now, maybe not perfect, but if you look back and you think on your childhood, there were certain routines or habits that almost had a sense of safety or comfort about them. And if you think back on those, did your parents or those around you who put those in place, did they always do that on purpose? Not necessarily.
No.
But you became accustomed to them, and that was a sense of comfort or safety for you. So parents, we are creating those every day for our children, I suppose. And again, that's a bit of a wake-up call and a bit of a slap here in the chops to say, even the small stuff that we do is so important. Let's shift gears quickly.
I get nervous when Joel goes, let's shift gears.
No, we're just cruising from fourth gear now into fifth gear.
Okay, we're almost there.
From an example or role model perspective, we're always going to get it wrong. Okay? Hands up.
Really?
Yeah, you hit it. We're always going to get it wrong, and we wake up tomorrow and we try again. Okay? There's a bit of grace there, so we try again. But from a role model perspective, if we look at the ultimate role model, we alluded to it earlier about, and we look at our Messiah. Okay, some know him as Jesus, some know him as Yeshua. His mommy would have called him Yeshua. If you think about the habits, practical habits that we could explore or take out of his journey at the first coming here on earth, what can we take from his habits and routines as believers, also even if from a non-believer's perspective, there are things that they could take. But let's just say from our reference or our framework in life, what habits could we take from our Messiah that would be really good to duplicate, replicate?
Yeah, those are some kind of footsteps to follow, huh?
They are, but they were there for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Guidance every day. I would, doing a little bit of research, it's not that difficult, but prayer, From
a prayer perspective, we know that Yeshua would often remove himself from the followers, the group, the masses, to intentionally provide himself with time and space to communicate with the Father. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth here, but it felt like he made the distinction and said, okay, I'm ministering to the masses, I'm providing the miracles, I'm doing the work of the Father, I'm about his business. But when that, and often said that, even said that he was drained, it feels like the energy was lacking in a sense. Where did he go to recharge? It was retreat and spend time alone with the Father. And that he knew he needed to withdraw. Yeah. So I think that's a habit. And if we ask ourselves, how much do we do that in a modern society? We try, have the odd weekend away. Somebody will say, I'll go and do that. Or I go on perhaps on a retreat, for example. But actually, without going in too deeply, we know there's a day set aside for us every week where we can retreat from the rhythm of normal life, work, everything else, and we can cut the cord or unplug it, whichever one you choose, and just say, that's for day one again. But on the seventh day, I am going to unplug, and I can then retreat and pull back. A divine design. It's an appointment. It's something that was put in at creation, as well for us. So
But kiddos, and to Christian at Restoration, the other service, he actually shared the Daniel prayer. He actually explained that he set 3 alarms on his phone, and he explained it just like having a 20-second prayer, but make time.
Yeah. Okay. So he set these alarms for himself.
Set these alarms.
3 alarms a day.
Yeah, 3 days.
Okay.
3 times
Safety
a day.
net. Remember too.
Just like, because we all have got that need, but we do get sucked into life and do get sucked into the world's things. That alarm actually helped him out, and I thought it was
tuning back in.
That is amazing. Such a great application. But spending time in the Word. Maybe you can share something about that.
How well there's time for communal time in the Word with other people, studying,
but keeping in mind following Jesus's character.
So from that
habit. Sorry.
No, from that perspective, I think there's enough wisdom in Scripture for us. There's enough inspiration, and obviously, I think as we go through the cycles year in and year out, we gain new wisdom and understanding. That's the beauty of it. It's a never-ending journey of discovery and understanding, and everything is added every single time we go through Scripture, whether it's in a particular study program or we're going through our cycles on that basis. We talked about the idea that Yeshua and fasting.
Yeah, that was the last thing I had on my list.
The physical fasting is something that we can all identify with that, especially times of need and breakthrough are needed, or where we really showing that we need to put our bodies to one side, and we are spiritual. We are the spiritual man in me needs to be at the forefront, and so fasting physically. But you mentioned something off air about fasting and the different angle that we can look at that from as well. You want to give us a few points?
Yeah, I thought more of. I hope I'm saying the right thing, is eliminating ourselves from certain things, or withdrawing from what we do daily. Fasting, we all just when we think of fasting, we just I'm going to go without food, or I'm going to go without certain things. But when last have you just fasted your phone? When last have you fasted the TV? That important rugby game on TV and stuff like that, and it becomes really the
news.
So there's definitely it's got different views of, again, like you said earlier on, separating yourself, removing yourself from the masses to go like, okay, this is now time I'm dedicating to the Father.
Removing yourself, withdrawing. There are different layers there. There's the me spending quality time without distractions, without interruptions, and this is why we have the Sabbath day that was given to us. In Yeshua's own words, it was made for man, and it's there for us to unplug. But at the same time, if you go a few levels up, in Peter's, was it 2 Peter? Forgive me, I can't remember the exact scripture reference, where Peter says, and he's only referencing what's again, I think, within the first 5 books of Moses.
Yeah,
that's what he's referencing, where the Heavenly Father, the Almighty, says, "Be holy as I'm holy," and we all know that. Well, holy, again, we get the idea of being pious, and here I am, holier than thou. But the set apartness, and so be set apart as I'm set apart. So there's this constant theme there of being set apart, not to withdraw at the cost of others, but to understand what is your role, what is your purpose. And the same way that Jesus did not always stick with the masses, he had to withdraw and reconnect. And he set us that example in terms of prayer life, reconnecting. So I think that set apartness, because ultimately he's coming back for his bride. And the bride, if the bride does not set herself apart, here's a question to ponder for the viewers. You and I have discussed this a few times. I won't give examples. All I'll ask is, what sort of bride is Messiah coming back for? You can go down different angles on that, but what sort of bride is he coming back for? And then relay it back to yourself as part of the body and that bride. Yes, I think if you're reading your scripture in context, then that should become clear what sort of bride he is looking for and he's coming back for. And I think the element of being set apart and knowing you. If he doesn't know you, he says, "Go away from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you." So yeah, there's something for us to ponder there.
Can I add something to that?
Shoot.
Which I think could be very valuable. What is on that garment? What spots of bad habits are you carrying? Are you willing to let it go so that can become more pure?
Show me a bride today, or just any bride on that special day, who's going to being the center of attention on that day, and you give her a dress that is a wedding dress that is littered with grease and stains and all sorts.
Yeah,
she's going to be very upset, and she's not going to tolerate that. But why do we tolerate it from a spiritual perspective, knowing that our bridegroom is coming back? He's coming back to collect and to fulfill his promises. Yet, yes, I think this circles nicely back to our habits. It's a great point. It circles back to our habits, not to make us feel guilty. It's to have awareness of there is a standard that we are aiming and striving for, and how do we get to know equally. Okay, well, you and I can't speak from the bride's perspective on this. That's just not our bag.
Yeah.
But if any brides out there, I'm sure I'd be fairly accurate in saying that you wanted to look special for your husband to be on that day. You wanted that, and I'm sure your husband to be really appreciated that as well. That's why it's such a special moment when on that day, Drankies maar vlak gesit for me. It was very emotional. Why do we tolerate it for our Messiah who's coming back to collect his bride, his set apart ones? Why do we tolerate that? I'm speaking to myself there, not from on high, everybody else. I'm speaking to myself. Why do I tolerate it? And so I think taking time to take stock of, maybe it's time for me to look at what I'm doing in my life and the habits that I've got, the traditions that I've got, the things that I've inherited, even from a faith perspective, okay? Are they things that are keeping other people happy? I hope this speaks to somebody. Are they things that keep other people happy? If they are things that keep people happy, then I'd say you're doing religion. Or is it about the relationship and keeping happy and growing in relationship with your Messiah and going closer to the Father? Those are two different things. You don't want to be part of a social club or a social membership, going through the motions. It is that he needs to know you. He says that himself. So yeah, I won't labor that one too long.
But at the same time, Charles, I know it's it's a longer episode than we initially thought, but I think it's a great episode. But it's great information. But hopefully, someone who maybe doesn't, live a lifestyle of good habits, and they go like, but these guys are talking about stuff that it sounds difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite simple to just start where you are, because I don't want to hide behind the concept that, the dear Lord knows your heart. Okay, but truly he does.
All the cases of the encounters he had with people in his first visit and he walked the earth, all the encounters he had with how many people, a lot of them were the sick, the mentally ill, physically ill, or people whose hearts he knew, even though tax collectors, all the things that he got accused of doing that the religious leaders didn't like or approve of.
Yeah.
All those encounters, he met them there.
Where they were.
They got transformed by interacting with him in his presence, they got transformed, and that prompted a change in behavior.
Yeah.
A turnaround, a 180 from that's how I was, new creation, and that's how I'm going to be, or that's how I want to be. So if you're in doubt, if somebody perhaps sent you this recording of this podcast and you feel like you want to break free from those bad habits, but you don't know how, then it was meant for you to be listening to this episode.
Yeah.
Who's your anchor? Open the scripture, get to know your Messiah, the one who is your Redeemer. He's the one who can sanctify you. He's the one who can put things straight, and he's the truth, the way, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by him.
Yeah.
And what a gift we have. What a gift we have. That.
Yeah, because no one's qualified. It's not about a qualification. It's not about even your level. It's a hard decision, and if people can really soften the hearts these days, because that's also a bad habit that crept through, is stubbornness,
Pride.
hardness, pride. And my plea to the people, and especially again the dads, is soften your hearts for a time like this. Start really opening up yourself, because it could be coming to the point where it's like, no, this sounds tough. This sounds like the dear Lord in his infinite ways is going to find you where you are and start with baby steps.
Yeah.
Don't think it's like you go from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
One step at a time.
Definitely. Looking at one of the last questions, we wanted to set a challenge to our viewers. We obviously apply it to ourselves too, but challenge to our viewers. If you've got a pen and paper handy, I'd even say pause the episode now and go grab a pen and paper. Old school, those who want to grab their tablets, go for that, or their devices. But yeah, pen and paper might be the easiest one, because you could put it on the fridge or pin it up somewhere afterwards. We said, right, let's do 2 columns.
Yeah.
First column is material. Now, when I say that, earthly things. I'll explain, give more context. We thought about how would we classify our habits, the things that we do. And it's perhaps a good suggestion might be that you alone don't fill this in. Maybe ask your better half at home. Maybe ask your parents, whoever, your best friend, your children. Yes, ask them to make a list of all my habits. Okay, and I'm sure they'll create a list of the habits. It could be the mundane stuff. It could be the more severe things. It depends on your situation. But go make a list of habits that you know. And if the list is short, go and ask the other people. Say, what can you add to my list here, please? As a real exercise in reflection and thinking about what's important. We take all of them. And then you have 2 columns. The one is a column for, is the habit aimed at making me successful, or does it impact on my material well-being? Yeah, it could be my wealth. It could be, as we said, how many Ferraris are parked in the garage, for example? The material things.
They're up for delivery.
It's limited edition. All the material things. So if you reckon that habit, if it's an insignificant one, you pick your nose or something, I don't know, just delete it off the list, doesn't matter. But if it's something that this is my habit, I get up, I spend an extra hour a night looking at my trading options on my trading app because I want to look after my pension, for example, or I want to make sure I'm making a bit more money on the side. That would go into the material column, because that's not something that you can take with you. And then your other column is going to be something along the lines of habits that are working towards or aimed at the eternal things. So make an eternal column. And then I think the sobering challenge, sobering conclusion is all of us will probably find that the vast, vast, vast majority of the habits, the things that we put effort into, because some habits you're born with, some are inherited, whether it's a psychological from a younger age, things you just got. This is the way I walk, or I catch myself doing something, I think, oh, it's my dad used to do that, and I'm doing the same thing. some of your habits are intentional. You bring them into your life. I'm going to get up at this time in the morning because I want to go and start jogging or training because I want to go and do the Comrades Marathon. You bring that into your life
is
because
that 2026? I just want to make a note real quickly.
speak to my agent. I need sponsorship first. Anyway, so you bring those habits into your life because they are there working towards a particular goal. So think of it from that perspective. All your habits that you've got, things that you've perhaps intentionally brought into your life and that you do, would they fall into the material column or into the eternal column? And I think we tested ourselves a bit on this just internally a little bit and said, we think our internal column is going to be a little bit on the vacant side. It's going to be a bit empty. And the challenge, the idea with this challenge is how much of what we do in our habits, which then become routines, are linked to eternal glory, eternal goals, things that are eternal, versus the stuff that I cannot take with me when I release my last breath. The things that won't matter, the things that will just be burned up one day anyway, upon return of the Messiah. So yeah, your habits, which columns are they going to fall into? And I think that's the sobering thought about our habits in general. Like everything else in our lives, what are we spending time on, and what is it dedicated to?
And what value truly does it bring?
Yes.
Who does it glory?
Yeah,
where gets the glory? Yeah, who gets the glory?
All right. So post that challenge, I need to go. I'm going to do mine next time we do a recording. We need to bring our lists. Okay, you and me. And our wives and kids had to give some of their input on that, and then we can compare. I think it'll be interesting to see. So we've got to practice what we preach.
Absolutely.
Right. One habit. Talking about spending time.
Yeah.
And you can ask me the same one.
Yes,
what we spend time on.
This wasn't on the list, Charles. You promised me you're not going to come with surprises.
What we spend time on and what we don't for the eternal things. Okay. So what's perhaps I've just thought of one. On my side, it could be a compromise. It could be I like that, but actually I'm not going to spend that much time on that. Or I've decided to build in a habit that I think is better spent on eternal things, for example. Well, what have you brought in either recently, or have you found great joy or great impact in a positive way for you? One habit.
You go first.
Okay. I do like my sport. It does not nearly play as much a big role in my life as it used to when I was a younger man. And so one thing I did was, if I wanted to watch what happened in the latest, either it was the rugby or the cricket or whatever, doing it on YouTube highlights, for example, instead of spending a whole day or a whole afternoon watching and going through the whole process of it, I can watch the match highlights in 10 minutes. And that was something practical for me that, I spent 10 minutes as opposed to 2 or 3 hours or even longer, especially if you're a cricket man like me. Sit and watch Test cricket the whole day. 10 minutes of highlights, and that was done. And that gives me my fix. That does feed my sort of carnal side to a little bit. Say, okay, I've watched it. I know what's happened there, and I got a little bit of enjoyment. But what does that allow me to do? That has freed up time where I can spend more time. Where, for example, I like listening to particular ministries online, and I go through their teachings and I listen to their teachings. So I'm being fed and edified for things that matter, but it doesn't feel like much, but that's made a huge difference. And it's only when you've done that habit's been created for me now for a number of years, that I then look around and I think, wow, people spend a lot of time, I'm not saying this in a judgmental way, on X, on Y, on Z, whatever, where does this really matter? Is this? So I try on first thing waking up on a Saturday morning, then I know I've got a particular ministry, great episode that I tune into, and that's my episode with my coffee, and I give time to that because that's helping me. It's feeding me. It's helping me, equipping me to feed my children, my wife, spiritually, in doing that. So that's something small for me that I made a shift a number of years ago, because I felt I'm spending too much time on all this fluff that doesn't really matter, but I'm still probably getting in a little bit of enjoyment.
No, you're doing great. I promise you're doing great. Your wife will even agree. We're very fortunate. I would say I'm going to keep it short and simple. just for time. Sleep.
Yep.
Giving up sleep, waking up early, setting the alarm. Not going to give it time because I don't want to be boastful or have you feel bad, Charles. But I do try and wake up a little bit earlier. It's not that early, but to make time for my word. That's the intentional to try, and you can't. Even our good habits that we try and create also under attack. When there's some good things you're trying to put in your life, you're going to be surprised. It's not going to be smooth sailing.
Yeah, but if you're creating the time for that at a time of day where you know the impact of other things in life and work and the needs of just everyday life, at that time of day, very early in the morning, we know there's less chance of that being hindered by all these other sorts of things. Because if you want to even do it in the evening, everybody's got their own routine, but you're making an intentional decision to do it then because quiet. And I know I can completely focus and I'm dedicating that time. So everybody's got to figure out, you might work shifts and so you've got a certain time of day, but ultimately you've made that decision. What's helped you keep strong in that habit?
Just recently attended a camp with Menorah Tabernacles up in Namakwaland, is that it? No, yeah. And it was a guy sharing or giving a sermon. Is that the regte woord? Yes, sir, my English. But anyways, it was about what kind of offerings are you bringing? And it's not money offerings. What are you bringing? How dare you lie half asleep and then have that 20-second prayer and go like...
very flippantly.
Yeah, you understand. So that has just reconfirmed why got to set time, got to have quality. Got to have quality. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, because again, you wouldn't settle for an inferior product if you spend some money to go and buy some new tennis. Shoes for the court, and they ripped first session, whatever. You wouldn't be happy with that. So it's again why do we think it's okay, even sometimes without thinking about it, that's okay in our spiritual life, in terms of the intention. It's too easy to go into it with a that'll do mindset, when actually, do you know who you are serving and who you are standing before, with fear and reverence and looking upon what he's done for you with awe, and then you realize, hey, I'm being selfish here. It's easy. It's too easy.
Sharing, distracting, and halfway.
All right. So I think that sounds like there's a realization that's come with that for you as well, which is great. I wish we could tap into the habits, I suppose, that we pass on. Even good to know what's good and what's not so good. But maybe that's a different episode.
Maybe sometimes it's trial and error. If you don't produce some good stuff, remember there might be a reason why things aren't working out.
Yeah. Well, dude.
This ended up being actually an amazing episode. I was nervous. Not nervous in a bad way. It was just...
it was slightly different to what we normally do.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, I'll be honest. Thanks for being a great co-host, Charles. I want to thank you. And also to the listeners that I think just survived our longest episode.
Thanks for growing with us as well.
Yeah, that's a great habit. Okay, that's not a bad habit.
Do you want to end off? I think we had two pieces of scripture, which I think we'll knock this episode on the head with. Tell us where those are from. And I think this links into what we talked about, habits and our responsibility as families and as parents.
Absolutely. Again, credit where credit's due. Thanks, Gabby, actually, for going, guys, this is gold. Proverbs 22 verses 6 and 7 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Wow.
Sobering thought about my habits.
That is incredible. And then the next one was Romans 12 verse 2. let's see, Romans 12, just hang in there, verse 2. It says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect, the will of God.
So we chose those two specifically because the first bit from Proverbs reminds us of our duty and our responsibility as parents in terms of what we do with the legacy and the blessing that we've been given in our children, the children we've been left in our care, that we need to raise and what we push forward. But equally, not being satisfied with just what we inherit or just what we do today, we continually need to be renewed in our minds and open and adaptable to growing, to understanding Father's ways in new depth, new understanding, getting fresh revelation from Him about who He is, so that relationship can actually grow even further than it is today. So onwards and upwards. Okay.
Awesome. Until the next time.